Okay, well, thank you all for joining us again. This is an interview with the incumbent commissioner from District 1, Melanie Bacon. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Happy to be here. I'm doing great, Richard.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. So I'm going to jump right into some of the questions that we have. One of them, the first question I always ask is, what made you decide to do this again to yourself and run again?
Why would you do this again? Well, a couple things. First is when I ran 4 years ago, I committed to my supporters that I would do two terms. So this will be my second term. I will not be doing a third term. Uh, but the other thing is that there's just so much that there's still left to complete that I want to complete. Government moves pretty slowly. And so you get started on something in year 2 and you're not going to see the finality of it until year 6 or so, as an example. So right now we're working on the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plan isn't going to be done till the end of 2025. And then we need to spend the following couple of years doing the codes changes in response to what we say are important to us in the comprehensive plan. So I still have work to do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, that's a good explanation. So your campaign right now, you were the leader in the primary. You had the most votes, which is
Mhm.
always a good sign.
Yeah.
And here in Island County, usually, I can't think of too many cases where it didn't go that way. Usually, that results in a win in the general, but I imagine you're still on your toes and you're still working for it. I saw you campaigning in Camino yesterday, I think.
Yes, I was
Um,
there Friday.
yeah, and it's so what's how's your campaign going? Are you enjoying it? Do you hate do you hate it? Because there's good and bad, um, as you know. And so what? How are you feeling right now about it?
I am not. I try very hard to not to get too confident. I don't think that's a safe thing for anybody to do, and so I'm not. I have to say that Damien jumping into the race that threw a whole new wrench into the thing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I do not know how this is going to come out. With regard to what I like and don't like, I really like connecting with people that normally I don't connect with. Usually people only come to see me or talk to me or contact me when they have a problem. When you're running for office, people will come to tell you, "Oh, I think you're great. I support you. You're wonderful." And that's kind of nice. I don't I don't hear that very much in my regular job. So connecting with people has been a really great thing. The negative thing has been that campaigns are nasty, Richard.
Yeah,
People
they
are
are.
really nasty, and they think they can say the most outrageous things about you because you're a candidate for public office. And so you have to have a really thick skin, and I've developed one, but that doesn't make it be okay. And every time I'm sign waving and someone drives by and their thumb is down or whatever, there's a little bit of kind of a feeling about that. And
Oh, that's a soft hit. Like sometimes they can get really just insane.
yes, they can. Yes.
There's, I could live with a thumbs down, but you know, there are times where people just take it too far. And
They
one
do.
thing that I always push for, especially in our local races, we do not need to take a chapter from the federal races. They are ugly because two big
No,
corporations are trying to kill each other. And
that's exactly right.
we have to live together after this race is over because we're neighbors. So I try and make sure everyone keeps it clean locally.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and but yeah, no, sometimes it goes too far, which is why I asked you, why would you do this yourself again? It takes a lot out of you.
It
Um,
does. It's pretty draining sometimes.
but you're kind of used to it because you are one of the few incumbents, and this is a positive. I don't care who you are, that often has an open door policy where you actually meet with voters and let them yell at you.
I absolutely do. Every week, people can come and yell at me. Absolutely. Every week on Mondays, I'm there. I'm at Cedar and Salt on Monday from 1:30, 1:30 to 2:30, and I'm at the Krabby Coffee down in Freeland from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock every Monday. I'm at in Clinton Community Hall once a month from 5 to 6 on the last Monday of the month. Yeah, and come talk to me about any county thing, any issue at all.
Yeah, no, I
right.
mean that's something that I think we need to push on all of our elected officials. I mean, I know it's difficult. It is difficult because you do have a very busy schedule,
Mm-hmm.
but it is something that every elected official should make an effort to do. So that way you can at least hear from the voters, and even if you don't necessarily agree, at least you heard them out and maybe explain why that's not possible or why that doesn't make sense to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important for democracy in general, is being able to hear from your constituents.
Well, that's right.
Um, so let me ask you. You've already been in for 4 years. You've got obviously 4 years experience doing the job, and before that, I believe you were the HR director for a number of years.
10 years.
Wow. So 14 years experience working in Island County.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty good resume. What do you think are going to be your top priorities if you're reelected and you've got another 4 years? What are going to be the top priorities for you to solve? Since you said it's probably going to be your last.
Yeah.
So in the last 4 years, what would you like to see accomplished?
Well, first of all, our big work is going to be the comprehensive plan. That's the big work. And then, as I said, the codes associated with the comprehensive plan. Affordable housing, very, very big, very big. The opioid crisis is very big. We have fentanyl deaths here in Island County, and we have actions that we need to take in response to that. Public safety, we've been having too many people dying on the highway, and so that's a big issue that I think about a lot. I worry a lot about emergency preparedness. One of these days, I worry we're going to have a big earthquake or we're going to have a wildfire, and I worry, are we prepared as much as you can be for something like that? So that's a big one for me too.
All right. Well, good.
And of course, the preservation of our beautiful forests and our open spaces and so on. Environmental protection is important to me.
All right. Well, great. And now with the highways, it gets complicated because we have to do so much work with state government.
That's right.
And state government is atrociously slow. If people think local government is slow, you'll realize the need for a local government when you try and get the state to do anything. So
that's right.
And it's just, as you go further up the echelon to the federal government, it gets worse from there. So how is it that you are going to use some of the relationships you may have currently with the state to get Olympia to invest as much as they need to in the roads here in Island County?
Well, something we learned a couple of years ago that the state kind of had never gotten around to telling us was that if we wanted them to put something on their plan to do in Island County, it has to be in the Island County's transportation plan. So we were just telling them what we wanted them to do: fix the shoulder widening on Highway 20 between Wilshire and Rapes Roads, for example. We weren't putting it in our plan because it wasn't our work. And then they kind of let us know that. So we need to continue to make sure that everything that we want the state to do is in our plan. We also need to continue to do all of the lobbying that we can. We have both in meetings, because there's members of the Department of Transportation sit in our IRTPO, our Island Regional Transportation Planning Organization meetings that we have once a month. There's representatives from the Department of Transportation in those meetings. But we also need to be lobbying our representatives in the state legislature and also in the federal legislature, because we do try and we sometimes succeed in getting dollars from the feds for some of our projects.
So just real quick, so I get that right, just to show people how hard it is to work with the state. And it's not necessarily any representative's fault. It's just the nature of the beast. In order for them to do what they're required to do in Island County and what they're required to pay for, Island County has to put it in a plan that they have no intention of actually taking action on, just so the state will consider taking action on it.
Yes, now that's not the legislator's issue. That's the Department of Transportation's issue. But
Okay.
yes, the Department of Transportation believes that if you don't have it in your local government plan, it obviously isn't important enough to you. We just learned this a couple of years ago. It obviously isn't important enough to you for them to prioritize it for you. So now we put all of these things in our local plan. One of the reasons our local plan is so long now is we have, a roundabout down in Bush Point, and we have the shoulder widening, and we have all of these different things that we need the state to pay for that we will not be doing anything for, but it's in our plan. Yes.
Uh, that feels annoying. I mean, that feels like it's just one annoying thing the Department of Transportation decided to do.
Well, there's a lot of annoying things that come from it. You do what you have to do in order to accomplish the goals that you've set out for the benefit of the citizens.
Okay. Well, thank you for letting us know that. So you kind of went over some of it, but when you went over the priorities, but the biggest problems right now that you see in Island County that need to be addressed.
Oh, it's affordable housing. It's housing. I mean, I can't have a conversation with any citizen these days without housing
Right.
becoming a thing. And ferries, of course, obviously ferries. Another thing we put in our plans, even though we have no power to affect the ferries, but we make sure that they know that that's important to us. But housing is something that the county can do some things for, right? So we have some funds that we can purchase properties that we can then work with developers to build affordable housing. But then the difficulty we have with that, Richard, of course, is that we don't have the septic foundations. It's the infrastructure. So you can't go put an apartment complex in Freeland because there isn't a sewer in Freeland or in Clinton or in Bayview. But that's really where we need to have those types of housing, at least a little bit of that. And so one of the things I did a few years ago is, and my colleagues agreed to this, and it worked. We asked the state for some dollars for a septic study to try to identify new types of septic systems that might be available globally that maybe are not legal in the state of Washington. What are the new technologies out there that the state of Washington is not allowing that could help us to be able to be more flexible and more efficient? And so the state gave us money for that because the state recognizes that that's a problem. The state has other counties that are having the same kinds of problems we are. So they hope that we'll come up with some solutions, then they can make them be illegal, and then we can all implement them. So we've hired a consultant. We're looking at looking globally. What are they doing in Holland for their septic problems? So, but we need we need to have infrastructure in order to build apartments, but we need to have apartments in order to have affordable housing. So it's a very, very complicated issue. I mean, it's another example. I often get asked, well, what are you going to do about Airbnbs? Because the proliferation of Airbnbs has taken a lot of rentals off of the market, long-term rentals out of the market. And that's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. And so we are going to be looking at that in our comprehensive plan work next year. But we recognize that for a lot of Island County residents, renting out their old mother-in-law ADU that's in their yard as Airbnb, that's how they manage to afford continuing to live in Island County. So there's a whole variety of the types of Airbnbs and the types of uses, and so it's a complicated issue too. Nothing is easy in this world.
Yeah, and some of the issues are on the state level. So we've got so many rules now that have to be followed in order to even build houses. And as you put more stress on the contractors for what they have to do, and assuming the infrastructure is there, it ends up costing them more money in order to follow the new guidelines. And that money ends up getting turned on the buyer. And then the buyer, who has a mortgage, if they decide to rent it out, turns that on the renter. And so it's just this endless cycle that increases the cost. And it's I'm glad that locally we're at least looking at things that we can do. There's some things that we just can't do.
Yeah.
That's going to be state level, but there are probably some things that we can do to try and limit how much it hurts. So hopefully we're able to navigate that over the next 4 years. So this is a question that I ask everyone since I live on Camino. Um, Camino Island often feels like they're kind of left out of Island County government. And we do not have a local government. We don't have a city council. We don't have a mayor. So
Right.
the commissioners are really it. They are the ones who decide pretty much everything locally for Camino Island.
Yeah.
If reelected, will Camino Island voters be able to have reasonable access to you?
Oh, absolutely. The only reason that I don't come over to Camino Island every week is the same reason I don't go up to Oak Harbor and meet with citizens every week. It's because as a commissioner, you try to be respectful of which district you're in and not intrude yourself into other people's districts.
Right.
And so that's the only reason I don't go over to Camano regularly. Now, I do go over to Camano sometimes for different things. I went over there to listen to people talk about what they wanted in the comprehensive plan. And I went over there to do a veterans event recently. And I mean, I go over there for when there's particular events. The speed study, I went over there. I go over there when there's events going on that I'm not going to be intruding in the arena of the District 3 commissioner. But I think it's a District 3 commissioner's job to be most closely paying attention to the daily issues of District 3. It does not mean that I don't care, certainly, and it does not mean that I don't represent you, because I do. All three commissioners represent all three districts, but we try to be respectful of that delineation.
Okay. No, that's
All of us do.
that's a good explanation. But so at Camino Island, they our District 3 commissioner is Janet St. Clair, and she is here pretty often. But she's 1/3 of the votes, so we could tell Janet everything we need, and she could vote yes on everything. And if we didn't reach the other two, we could get none of it.
That's right. That's absolutely true. That's
and so that's one reason why I'm like, hey, I know you're District 1 or District 2. It's just important that Camino is able to reach all of our commissioners, so that way they can handle the issues, particularly like with our police. We have a little bit of a shortage here, and that is a county issue. That is an issue that we need.
Right.
We desperately need you. So let me ask, what separates you from your opponents? You have two. You have Marie Shimada, who is from the same party, and then Damian Green ran a write-in campaign from the Republican Party. What separates you from those two?
Well, for one thing, I've been working in Island County government for 14 years. I understand the county, I understand the operations, I understand all the players. I've been a commissioner now for 4 years. I know what the job is. And if you talk to either of the people running against me and ask them, any kind of in-depth questions about the job, you will not get the kind of answers that you get from me. And I'm not going to say anything negative about either of them. They're both fine people, but I just have a whole lot more experience and knowledge, and I know what I'm doing. And I think I've done a really good job for the citizens of Island County. I think I've been a really good commissioner.
Well, thank you. So you kind of already went over this. Sometimes the questions overlap if you do a good job explaining the previous ones. But what are some of the safety solutions that you want to bring to Island County? You mentioned a few, but specifically having to do with safety, what are some solutions that you might bring to our lack of police? Any issues we might have with our, obviously fentanyl, as you said, is a problem. What are some things we can do to try and fix those problems?
So with regard to the sheriff's office, the county has had open positions in the sheriff's office for the entire time I've worked for the county. And I know this very well because I was the HR director, right? So we've always had a lot of, by a lot, I mean 5, 6, 7 open positions for sheriff's deputies. So it isn't that the county commissioners are not willing to fund sheriff's deputies. We absolutely are. It's that the sheriff himself has not been able to find sufficient quality applicants. Now this is not unique in Island County. This is a problem that law enforcement all over the country is having the same problem. It isn't a problem of pay, because our deputies are paid properly in the marketplace, and they negotiate their pay. We have a very strong deputies union. The correction officers have a very strong union, and they negotiate their pay. So it isn't about pay. It certainly is not about the quality of the work. It isn't about, I mean, can you imagine a more beautiful place to be to do law enforcement than
No.
Island County? So it really is just about the paucity of quality applicants out there, and it's a real problem for the sheriff. So that's one that what I can do is really limited, other than continue to support the sheriff in his initiatives to try to find more applicants for his positions. With regard to, let's see, what was the other one that you asked? The other
fentanyl.
Fentanyl. So one of the things the county did a couple of years ago is we created a position called Recovery Navigator, which is a position out of the Human Services Group. I used to look at how red my face is. I apologize.
No, that's the care. That's just how StreamYard works. I've got red under my eyes. It looks like I got punched twice.
So anyway, I'm not that vain. It's just so strange. The fentanyl crisis. So we created a position called Recovery Navigator, and the Recovery Navigator rides along with the deputy. And when they encounter individuals who are in an opiate crisis, the Recovery Navigator steps in and handles the situation in a way that perhaps the deputy is not the proper person to be dealing with. We recognize that addiction struggle is not really a law enforcement issue. It really is it's a human services issue, and we try to make those connections as best as we can. We need more treatment. We need more treatment here. Island County is lucky now to have a center, the Atua Stabilization Center, and it's in Oak Harbor that was funded by the county. We're lucky to have, that's a regional stabilization. We're lucky to have it here. We have asked the state to give us money for 6 more beds. That's in our ask for 2025. So because the need is that much greater. We asked them last year for some operating dollars assistance with that. One of the things that you're going to be hearing, it's probably I'm not a very good politician, Richard. I'm about to start talking about something that's not very politically astute a month before the election. But one of the things that we're going to have to talk about over the coming years is going to be a jail. We're going to need a new jail. And one of the reasons we're going to need a new jail is because we have come to recognize that most of the people who are in our jail are not in our jail because they are criminally inclined. It's because they have addiction problems or behavior mental health problems. And so we are going to need a jail that has beds for treatment. We're going to need to be doing mental and behavioral health and drug addiction treatment in jail. So we need a different kind of a facility. And we're really lucky that the sheriff and the jail administrator are the ones that identified this as the problem. So the board is we're all on board on this. We recognize that we need to do everything we can to help our citizens get through these awful times that so many of them are facing. Now that fentanyl is just so easy to access, and it's so cheap, and it's just
it doesn't affect anyone, rich, poor, homeless, mansion. You could have a family member who gets hooked on it.
Absolutely. It's really a terrible, terrible thing. And with life being so much more stressful than it's been, I think. I mean, I'm not a young person, and every decade we talk about how hard life is. I'm here to tell you it's harder today than it was back in the 70s. And so I really do feel for young people now who see this as a way to kind of spend some hours out of their stress. It's very, very, very difficult thing, and we have to treat it. We have to be responsive to the need.
Yeah, and the purpose for jails, there's 2. One, to remove a threat from the county and from the citizenry, And then 2 is rehabilitation. And
Mm-hmm.
if we believe that you have done something that cannot be rehabilitated, you get life in prison or the death penalty. So if you're not getting that, then our goal needs to be rehabilitation. I agree.
Yeah,
Because eventually you're going to come out. We'd like you not to reoffend.
exactly. We
Um,
want you to have a wonderful life once you emerge from jail,
yeah.
and we want to do whatever we can to help that to be the reality for you.
So now this is a more of a question that allows you to just sort of have a political vision and be on the pulpit there. What is your vision for how Island County government should work?
How it should work. I think my vision of Island County would how it should work would be we have exactly the right people and the right number of people in each office who have the right kind of attitude to respond to every need that every citizen brings to them and asks them to take care of and help them with. So that if you need a permit, you have all the people that you need right there to help you to get your permit, and it goes through the process as quickly as anyone could ever wish it could. That you need to file something, it goes smoothly. You need to pay your taxes; they're not burdensome, and it's easy to do. I mean, the purpose of local government, number one, is to ensure public safety, but it's also to be there to help people, right? And so uh, as a commissioner, I do everything I can to fund public safety and to try to ensure that citizens are getting everything that they can have that will help them. So that would be my vision for the ideal government, would be one that's easy to access. You can go online, you can call on the phone. It's just really super, super easy. It'd be lovely if there were, government offices in every region. We can't afford to do quite that, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's just accessibility, really.
So an accessible and
Accessibility
efficient
and
government.
help.
Now,
Yes,
that
yes.
that is a good goal. It's so hard to do, and the bigger it is, the more difficult it becomes. Which is why we need local governments, because if you
Well,
count on state government for it, it's not happening.
and
Um,
we're really limited in the dollars. We don't have an extraordinary amount of money at the county level, and
right.
we're really limited in what we can ask citizens to give us at the county level, and so we make do with what we have. And so what happens is, for example, in the budget that we're just trying to finish right now, we got a lot of asks from departments asking for this software that'll help them to serve the citizens, or that activity that'll help them to service citizens, or this position. And we had to turn a lot of them down this year for 2025 because we need to be able to reward our employees by giving them, an annual increase. And we want to
Right.
be able to give people an increase in 2025 to try to keep up with inflation and everything, because our employees do a great job. So we had to choose really between uh, recognizing the work that our employees do and being able to add to services, because our sales tax numbers weren't good in 2024. So that's just kind of the reality of local government. We don't have the big bucks that many other agencies have.
Yeah. All right. So I'll ask you, what is your greatest strength that you bring to Island County government?
I am, well, you mentioned the accessibility and the
Mhm.
transparency.
Right.
I do a newsletter every week, tells everybody what everything we did this week, what's coming up next week. I mean, I really keep citizens informed. And in fact, a lot of citizens have become more involved in their government since I've been county commissioner, because I've shown them how easy it is. I tell them, if you want the commissioners to deal with it, because they come to my Monday meetings, they tell me their problem. I say, that's important. I'm glad that you told me about that. You need to go talk to the other commissioners. You're going to do that by going to the Tuesday meeting that happens at 10 o'clock. You can do it on Zoom. You can come in person. You can tell them, and you tell all of us the same thing that you just told me. And a lot of people have become more engaged in their government since I started doing this. And so I think that that's one of the big things that I've brought. I've brought a really calm, reasonable temperament. I did yell at a constituent the other day. It had to do with this election crazy thing. But that's the only time I've ever raised my voice at a constituent ever. And he
In
was
4 years, if it's only once, you did a good job.
so I bring a real calmness, and I think I'm a kind person, and I think we need more kindness in government. I'm pretty smart. I don't talk a lot because I'm not a person who I don't talk unless the thing that I have to say is not being said. So if the thing that I have to say is not being said, then I will speak out. But I don't have a need to have to reiterate what somebody else has already put on the table. Which that's just, I don't pontificate. I do not pontificate. So I think those are positives.
So, all right, that's all the questions I had. So the last thing I always do is give you a minute to explain to people why we should support your campaign and reelect you, and just a little bit about what you're doing.
Well, I do have a vision for Island County that recognizes that, because we know we're going to have we're going to be growing by about 15,000 more people over the next 20 years, and we need to figure out how we're going to keep the magic that is Island County here. How do we protect the wonder and beauty that's this place while we find places for these people, or we are able to incorporate them into our environment. We're going to be doing that through the comprehensive plan. We're going to be looking at zones and so on. And so I'm heavily involved in that. I'm heavily involved in identifying how do we protect our environmental wonders and find places for people to live. That requires experience, it requires knowledge, and it requires vision. And I bring all of those things here. I think that this year, particularly in 2025 and through the years following that, it's particularly important that you have people in government, in our local government, who know what they're doing and have experience in accomplishment. So that's why you should vote for me, because I know what I'm doing. I do a good job, and I do a good job for you.
Well, thank you. And if people want to reach you to support your campaign, what's your website, and how would they contact your campaign to get involved?
It's pretty easy. I'm at electmelbacon@gmail.com if you wanted to email me. Yeah. Or I'm trying to think. And it's electmelbacon.com is my website.
Okay. All righty. Well, thank you so much. And, I hope we can get you on a little bit closer to election day. And we'll see how everything shakes out. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for
All right.
this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you.